Food Defence Case Study: Cyberattack Threatens Allergic Consumers. Last year, I explored the food safety risks posed by cyberattacks and concluded that an undetectable intentional adulteration incident would be incredibly difficult to perpetrate using computer systems alone. In that post, I discussed various scenarios and shared examples of possible cyber attacks on food and beverage operators, including security camera feed hacks, industrial control system hacks, and personnel access system hacks. At the end of the post, I concluded, however, without the assistance of an insider or a physical presence in the facility, perpetrating an undetected food adulteration event using computer systems alone would be difficult. Now I'm rethinking that conclusion. Do cyber attacks pose threats to food safety? Yes, they pose threats, but in the past I've argued the risks of a food safety incident arising solely from a cyber attack, unassisted by an insider or intruder with boots on the ground, are low. And a reminder, threats are not the same as risks. A threat is a potential event or action that could cause harm or damage, while a risk is the likelihood and impact of a threat actually occurring. So what are the risks? In issue 113, I focused on food adulteration risks. That is the risk from a harmful adulterant being intentionally added to food for the purpose of causing harm. Cyber attacks certainly cause serious financial losses and major disturbances to food supply chains. A ransomware attack on the world's largest meat supplier, JBS, in 2021 caused disruptions to every JBS processing facility in the USA, costing millions of dollars. But there are few scenarios in which a cyber attack can directly cause food adulteration without it also being easy to detect. For example, if a cyber attack affected the PLC system, and that stands for Programmable Logic Controllers, of a food manufacturing line, the food could end up undercooked or overdosed with additives, but these failures would likely be detected during the course of normal operations. In fact, despite finding many instances of harm caused to companies by cyber attacks, I couldn't find evidence that a cyber attacker had ever managed to adulterate food from an off-site location. Last week, I learned of a cyber attack that posed serious risks to certain consumers. The attack was perpetrated solely from a personal computer, with the perpetrator not needing to enter the food business. It's a chilling story. A disgruntled ex-employee of Disney World with access to menu creation software for their theme park restaurants has been accused of manipulating menus to make it appear that foods containing peanuts were safe for allergic individuals to consume. The results could have been catastrophic for allergic consumers, although fortunately it appears no one was hurt. The FBI alleges that the employee, who had been the menu production manager, accessed the menu software, a third-party product called Menu Creator, and made unauthorized changes to Disney World menus over a period of 3 months. In addition to adding information which falsely labelled certain items as safe for people with peanut allergies, the FBI alleges the ex-employee also changed the price of certain items, changed fonts, and altered QR codes to direct users to controversial websites. What's different about this incident compared to a typical food defence incident is that food was not adulterated, nor was there any threat of adulteration or, in fact, any intention to adulterate at all. The threat was solely related to misinformation. So here's a question. For an incident like this with no actual adulteration, is it correct to call this a food defence issue? For me, the answer is clear. Yes. If protecting consumers from malicious actions isn't food defence, then I don't know what else it could be. However, let's check the official definitions. The FDA says food defence is the effort to protect food from acts of intentional adulteration or tampering. And the Global Food Safety Initiative says food defence is, and please excuse me here, this quote is a bit of a mouthful, The process to ensure the security of food ingredients, feed or food packaging from all forms of intentional malicious attack, including ideologically motivated attack leading to contamination or unsafe product. So these definitions, do they apply to an incident where food has not been adulterated or tampered with? The FDA definition doesn't, because it's about protecting food from tampering, whereas in the Disney World incident, the tampering did not affect the food, but the menu. The GFSI definition of food defense is also unsuitable for this incident, because it's also about protecting food, feed and packaging from contamination, with no room in the definition for incidents that don't involve contamination. Does this mean we shouldn't address vulnerabilities like menu tampering and allergen misinformation in our food defense programs? Nope. But it does mean our definitions might need to be adjusted. What can we learn from this incident? Food and beverage operators have a legal and moral obligation to protect their consumers from malicious actions connected to their food. The alleged incident with Disney World's menus could have had deadly consequences for peanut allergic consumers. A lawyer might argue that Disney World failed to protect its consumers if the menu had made it into restaurants. Fortunately, the other changes to the menus alerted staff that they'd been tampered with and the menus were not distributed. The person accused of the tampering denies any wrongdoing. While employed, he had legitimate access to his employer's menu editing software and may have retained access after his employment ceased or gained access using the credentials of former colleagues. It's possible, even likely, that the departments responsible for removing or resetting IT access for terminated employees were unaware of his access to the menu software. If they had been aware, they may have considered such access inconsequential and not worth worrying about. Key learnings. Menu software might seem like non-critical software in relation to food defense and cyber attack protection. However, a tampered menu poses threats to consumers. Menu software could therefore be considered a potential vulnerability in food defense systems. Menu software may be less well protected than other software when it comes to unauthorized use. When employees leave a food business, their access to critical systems would usually be removed. However, obscure and less critical systems could easily be missed. Such systems should also be checked. Menu software should have the same level of login protection as other critical software, for example, multi-factor authentication and best practice security protocols. And the final point in the key learnings, businesses that use menu software should review access for employees and check that software uses current best practice security protocols. In short, food defense incidents usually involve tampering with food. This incident did not involve food directly. Instead, menus were tampered with, allegedly to cause harm to peanut allergic consumers. The incident was perpetrated using software that might normally be considered non-critical for food defense and cyber security. Access to the software may have been retained by a disgruntled ex-employee who allegedly caused the incident. Menu software is a potential vulnerability in food defense systems. Businesses that use menu software should review access for employees and check that software uses current best practice security protocols. And the main source for this post is an article titled "Former Disney Employee Accused of Hacking Menu System and Changing Peanut Allergy Information" that was published at cbsnews.com. And you can find a link to that article in our online post, and the link for that is in the Apple Podcast show notes or in the YouTube description.